My name is Dr. Joel Heck. I'm a professor of theology at Concordia University, Texas, and it's my pleasure to be with you for this DVD. You're going to the Whitty Museum, and the first slide that we have to offer you shows you the front entrance to the Whitty Museum. What I want to do in this brief lecture is to give you two major points. First of all, the big picture, how evolutionary science looks at the creation-evolution debate, and in particular, the dinosaur exhibit that you're going to take a look at. And then secondly, I also want to take a look at Noah's flood and where dinosaurs fit into the biblical picture. So, the big picture from evolutionary science, from Darwinism, dinosaurs ruled the earth for about 140 million years. They became extinct approximately 65 million years ago, according to the evolutionary scenario. They also state, and this exhibit that you're about to see will try to demonstrate this, that birds evolved from dinosaurs, and that many other species that we know today from the world in which we live did not live at the same time that dinosaurs lived. On the other hand, Scripture from Genesis chapter 1, Exodus 20, verses 8 to 11, and other passages in Scripture states, "For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and all that is in them." And that creation would also include the dinosaurs. So I believe that God made the dinosaurs during the 6 days of creation, probably during the last 3 days of creation when he made the land animals and the air animals, the flying animals, and also those animals that live in the sea. Dr. Carl Werner is a former evolutionist and a scientist, and who was puzzled by a lot of the fossils that he saw in the fossil record. And he decided to compare fossils to living creatures, those creatures that are alive today. And if the fossils looked very, very different from living creatures today, he would conclude that there had been a lot of change, a lot of evolutionary change, and that evolution was probably true. On the other hand, he thought that if living creatures looked a lot like these ancient fossils, that would be evidence that there had been very little or no change between the fossil version of this creature and the modern day version of it. And so he began to look in museums and records and books and things all over the world. And he ended up publishing a book entitled Living Fossils. And what Dr. Carl Werner discovered was that there are fossils of every major invertebrate animal phylum and most vertebrates existing today. He also found that fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds were found in dinosaur layers looking exactly the same as modern forms. Paleontologists have discovered 432 mammal species in the dinosaur layers, and yet when you look at various dinosaur exhibits, you won't find any other creatures that we would recognize today showing up in the same exhibits with the Tyrannosaurus rex or a Plesiosaurus or an Archaeopteryx or any other of these creatures. And so museums of natural history, like the Whitty Museum, tend to eliminate evidence that might suggest that there were other creatures, modern-day creatures, in existence at the same time as the dinosaurs. He also found that every major plant division living today appears in dinosaur rock layers. But again, this evidence you will typically not see in most museums of natural history. Now, one other thing that you're going to find at the Whitty Museum, and there will be some things that I would consider to be very accurate biblically. One thing you're going to find is a reference to Pangea, spelled at the Whitty Museum as P-A-N-G-A-E-A. Now, this is the idea that all land masses were at one time together in a single continent. You might not read the particular display where that is described, but it is there at the Whitty Museum. I happen to see that myself. I just want you to know that people like me, creationists, believe this. And it seems to be supported in the biblical record in the first chapter of Genesis. In verse 9 where it says, "And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered in one place." I conclude that if the water is gathered in one place, that therefore the land is also gathered in one place. So the idea of continental drift is probably true, although many creationists believe that instead of continental drift, it was more like continental sprint, and that during the time of the flood, that the land masses separated quite rapidly, not hundreds of miles an hour, but several feet per hour. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this section is the question, did birds evolve from dinosaurs? Because the Whitty Museum is trying to portray the idea of dinosaurs eventually evolving into birds. There was an article on this topic entitled, Did Birds Evolve from Dinosaurs, at creation.com. And after this visit, you may want to go to creation.com and type in that article title and look at it and read that article extensively yourself. There are a lot of problems, however, that appear from the idea that birds evolved from dinosaurs. The article will talk about the unlikelihood that dinosaur lungs could have developed into bird lungs. Those are two very different kinds of structures, and extremely unlikely that that kind of evolution would have taken place. Some of the feather structures this article talks about are merely collagen fibers and probably not feather structures at all. Finally, two concluding points. Dinosaurs with true feathers are really birds. They are not transitional forms, links between dinosaurs and birds. And secondly, the Archaeopteryx, which you will find displayed in the dinosaur exhibit at the Whitty Museum, was a bird, completely a bird species that is extinct and not a missing link. Now the question is, where does Noah's flood fit in, and how did dinosaurs fit into the biblical picture? According to Scripture in Genesis 6 verse 20, 2 of every kind of animal were brought into Noah's ark. He didn't have to find them, God brought them to him. There are about 8,000 animal genuses, which translates into about 16,000 animals. These animals would fit into less than half the space of the ark. And where did dinosaurs fit in? All the animals that were put on the ark would include dinosaurs. Now, how could all of them fit into the ark? Well, the answer is that while there are 668 species of dinosaurs, there are only about 55 created kinds of dinosaurs, with varieties within these kinds. So only 55 pair would need to be included in the ark. Secondly, the average size of a dinosaur, this may surprise you, the average size of a dinosaur is that of a sheep. Most people imagine full-grown T-Rexes on board Noah's Ark, or Plesiosauruses or Brontosauruses, or those kinds of dinosaurs, the Allosaurus, and imagine them wreaking havoc on Noah's Ark, and that's really not necessary to hold. Thirdly, young dinosaurs would have been taken on the ark to allow for reproduction after the flood, and in fact some dinosaurs are known to have a growth spurt after a few years of life. By the way, I just want you to know that reptiles are the only species or only type of animals that keeps growing for their entire lifetime, which explains the massive sizes that some of them eventually reached. Now, slide number 12 shows a full-grown Tyrannosaurus rex. This is an outside exhibit at the Whitty Museum. You can see this Tyrannosaurus rex. It's fitted with capability of motion and some sounds, so it might actually scare you a little bit if you get up really close. Inside the Whitty Museum, you will find also an exhibit of a young Tyrannosaurus rex, apparently with some small evidence of feathers on the Tyrannosaurus rex, again to try to support the idea that dinosaurs eventually evolved into birds. What kind of a bird the Tyrannosaurus rex evolved in, I'll leave that for you to speculate on.